You are in the making. All new episodes air on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We hope you enjoy. Please follow along. Let's start with something that so many people wrestle with, the idea of the dream job. We're told that if we land the thing we've been chasing, we should be grateful. But what happens when you get there?
I struggled knowing I wasn't in the right fit for me. I knew these things needed to change. You know this, Michael. Then the universe starts sending you signs that it's not the right thing. I was sick. I got sick every day. And then when I finally was like, what would happen if I just walked away?
In the book, I talk about how sometimes the hardest thing isn't failing, it's succeeding at something and realizing it didn't fulfill you.
When I first had my first meeting with my manager at my last position, I said to her, as confident as I am, I kind of need the compliment sandwich a little bit.
To be proud doesn't mean you have to be loud. And I just thought that was the most hypocritical thing in the world as a leader. And I'm just like, I don't want to live in a world like that. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Hey everybody, and welcome to In the Making, the podcast where we talk about the twists, pivots, and reinventions that shape our lives. I'm Michael Betz, and I'm also the author of the upcoming book, In the Making, which explores those very moments of transformation and what it means to embrace the in-between. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by someone whose energy, creativity, and insight inspire me constantly, Lauren Worley. She's a powerhouse in so many ways, an advocate for creativity, a leader who challenges what success looks like, and someone who's navigating massive career shifts with both courage and honesty. We're going to talk about the so-called dream job, when it isn't a dream, why founders and innovators have to be a little delusionally optimistic to succeed, and how to stay true to ourselves is sometimes the hardest battle of all. Lauren, welcome to In the Making.
Oh my gosh, Michael, that was I'm going to play this first part of the podcast back when I'm feeling at my lowest, because that's a nice introduction. Thank you.
Well,
it's so good to be with you. Yeah, thanks.
It's all true. Well, we're excited to chat with you a little bit more, but let's go to a quick break. I'm back. It's Michael Betz, your host of In the Making podcast and the proud president and managing partner of the Proper Group. The past year, transforming the Proper Group has been one of the most exhilarating and rewarding experiences of my life. But when people ask, what is the Proper Group? My honest answer is, we don't fully know. Well, let me explain. We do know. We're just building something different. The Proper Group is 70% baked. Our founder, Larry Burns, laid the foundation. Now we're evolving into an elite collective of fractional C-suite leaders driving real sustainable growth. What we're not is a bloated consultancy with junior talent doing the real work, or a siloed agency only focusing on one or two functions. What we are is a cross-functional growth accelerator, a hands-on execution partner embedding with leadership teams. Because when companies grow, they grow fast. And without the right foundation, that growth won't last. That's where we come in. Let's talk, explore what we're building, and see if this would be the right fit for your team. We're just getting started, and come along for the ride. The Proper Group. We're on the move. Visit us at www.theproper.group. And welcome back. Let's start with something that so many people wrestle with, the idea of the dream job. We're told that if we land the thing we've been chasing, we should be grateful. But what happens when you get there and it's not what you thought? Lauren, I'm interested. Can you share your own experience of walking away from what was supposed to be the dream?
Yeah, I can, Michael. And, sometimes the dream is your dream. Sometimes the dream is someone else's dream and what you think others think you should be doing. And so sometimes it's really helpful to think about when you're assessing, should I be doing this or not? Wait a second, is this my dream or is this my mom's dream for me? Or is this my dream or is this something I know my friends would be like, oh my gosh, we talked about this a little bit. I used to work at the One Campaign, which is a nonprofit, global nonprofit co-founded by Bono. And my job was artist and talent development. So I would find influencers and then, try to get them to work on the message. I took Connie Britton to the Democratic National Committee once. I took Katie Holmes to Capitol Hill, and so finding talent that was aligned with the mission.
So
And then,
cool.
yeah, it was super cool. Right. But like, and then sometimes it would be like, helping prepare, like someone Bono was going to talk to, like he might be seeing someone at an event he was at, or then when you two went on tour a few years back, like, making sure we were inviting all the right people to be backstage and, all that kind of stuff. And like, I wore ripped jeans and leather jacket every single day. You
I
gotta
love
start to
the
think
look.
you're a rock star.
You are.
But yeah, you are. We all are. But like, for me, like, it wasn't like hands-on enough. Like it was just a little too like one step removed from doing the work I wanted to be doing. But like, I felt like, are you for real? You're really gonna like just you're gonna quit working for Bono? Like who even like does that? And so for too many months, I struggled knowing I wasn't in the right fit for me. Like I wasn't in the right city for me at the time. Like I knew these things needed to change. And this, Michael, then the universe
Yeah.
starts sending you signs that it's not the right thing. I was sick. I got sick every day. Like I was sick every day for like weeks going on months. And I felt like I was constantly like
Mm.
needing to take time off and all this stuff. And I was like, that's because I'm not listening to my body. And then when I finally was like, what would happen if I just walked away? Like, and I obviously quit, not just walk, like not just like disappear, but like put a plan in action. And so I thought about it and I did. I gave like a month's notice. So there was plenty of time to do all the transition that needed to happen. And, once I did that, I started feeling better. Like things became clearer for me. And then, what it led to was a sabbatical that then led me to move back home to Cincinnati. So, I mean, I needed that clarity, but like, I am sure there are people who are like, what? Like you left managing like talent for Bono, essentially, like to go do nothing. It's just a crazy thing. So like again though, but I felt like sometimes it was someone else's dream, not mine. And I've learned so much in that job, and I like use all the things I learned in it like all the time. And occasionally, like every few months or so, I'll email my manager at the time and be like, remember when you taught me this? I did that today, or I thought about this today. But for me, it was the right moment to move. And I could feel it. I could do the exhale when I finally made the decision to do what was going to work for me.
I think it's interesting that you bring up that it's sometimes someone else's dream. Like, I came from a good family. We had everything that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
My parents gave me, a great education and set me up for success. But I feel like that I had a lot of pressure because they did give me those tools, knowing that they sacrificed for me to have an education and whatnot. So I felt when I kind of took that leap that I was going to disappoint them, because that's all that they know is me succeeding and being a vice president since I've been 27 years old. And, all of these different things. And it is it's a mental shift both for you, but also like, what's the comm plans to, let those people know that you're doing the right decision. So I think, there's a little bit for me, Catholic guilt. I think that there's a little bit
both of us,
yes.
right? Like,
but yeah, well, I think that's really, kind of, now that you look back, part of the in the making for me is basically to maybe help, if it can help 1-2 people who's maybe struggling, kind of in the mid betweens of like, do I go this way or go that way? Lessons that I've learned. Is there something that you would like to tell yourself that before you would have made the jump of this big move, or any of your, you've had very successful career big moves that someone would have told you?
We kind of hear this, like, when you're talking to a friend and they like are trying to decide if they're going to break up with the person they're dating, and and then you're giving them all this advice, but then they're not listening to it. And then you're like, well, what advice would you give me if that was me breaking up? Listen to that advice. And so I feel like that's kind of the same thing. Like if a friend was in the same situation, I'd be giving them advice like, well, you should think about this. And they would probably listen to me. Why am I not listening to my own
We're
advice?
hypocritical.
Why am I like living counter to it? And the other thing is that we all know this, like whether it's, I mean, I hate for people to break up, but like sometimes you break up with someone and it's actually a relief, or like, or you decide to leave a job that's like not a right fit for you. Or sometimes you get in your head, you're like, it means I'm not the right fit. And it's like, it's maybe not just not right for right now.
Yep.
Like, it's just maybe when you were, single and you didn't matter if you worked till 9, but now that you have kids or you have dogs like I do, you don't want to be gone from home all the time. So it's just not the right fit anymore. And by the way, so we usually, as you know, promotion means you start managing people. And that's not for everybody.
Everyone.
Like many of us are really strong individual contributors, and we are at our best when we're kind of given an assignment or given a wide field to play in. But that's when I went to NASA, I was press secretary. I had people I reported to, but I didn't have kind of had my own lane of stuff I did, and I didn't have any people. I was the face. And I did a lot of travel and stuff, so it was hard for me to dip in and out of other projects. So I kind of had my own thing. And I think I was probably at my professional best then, because it was all about managing myself, and I didn't have to worry that, all these other people are doing their thing. So it's like being real clear about what we think success is and defining it in the sense of being whole, well-rounded, as opposed to, I'm confident this is happening to you, where it's I'm really super successful on paper and I'm making more money than I ever have, but I'm staying up till 11 o'clock. And then I'm sick in the morning when I wake up because I'm stressed and I don't want to see this. You know what I mean?
All those
things.
You're hungover.
Because you're
self-sabotaging.
And people need to listen to that. It's remarkable when you start, and you'll feel that exhale and you'll know you made the right decision. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes you don't know, but your gut tells you. Trust your gut.
Obviously I have to sell books here, but I kind of look at chapter 2, really the title's called Prelude to Changes, when life pushes you off script. And I think that's really what it has, because there's other outside factors of what you were factoring in on making the move and whatnot. And in the book, I talk about how sometimes the hardest thing isn't failing, it's succeeding at something and realizing it didn't fulfill you. How did you recognize that realization? Was it the health? Was it because sometimes people say, the grass is always greener. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's great to have a paycheck and a stability and all of those things, but you're not happy. You're not happy. And that goes both ways.
And we're taught to kind of, suck it up. And by the way, not every job is going to be your greatest adventure ever. Sometimes it is really a job and not a career. And sometimes, so it's really hard to, like you said, how do you think about that? But if you're getting really clear about what your long-term goals are, and you talk about this so well, and, when it pushes you off script, you got to get back on script, right? Yes. So what's on script? Okay, so I know my goal is for my personal life, I want some balance in it. I want to be my real self. I do not want to go into a meeting and have to think I have to talk with a certain diction, or I can't wear my favorite jean jacket, or, that I have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I always want to be just myself, because when I'm authentic. Myself, when I'm authentic, my brain is now fully on for creative purposes, and not oh no, am I an imposter, or all those other things, if I'm being myself. But then also, when you get down to it and really think about what your goals are, I moved back to Cincinnati because I want to be near my nephews, and I've never regretted that once. So actually what I was doing was off script instead of the thing that I'm now doing, if that makes sense. And by the way, we're writing the script too.
Back at it, because we have such lenses on that. Mm-hmm. We're so blinded, and you only see black and white, you don't see the color. And so I think one of the greatest things is, like you said, taking that sabbatical and really reflecting and learning from what worked and what didn't work, and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I think it's just one of the most gratifying things. If it's a week, if it's a month, if it's 3 months, if it's a year, I know not everybody has the resources to be able to do that, but it's important. I actually was speaking with another guest, and, in this country, and I think just in the world, we're told we have to do what we're going to do for the rest of our life when we're 17, 18, 19 years old. We're still kids. I don't think we're fully adults until we're 30, 32, and so once we don't have to ask our parents to help get us through for the next week.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Paycheck to paycheck. And so I think it's just, so interesting. So Lauren, this is Great conversation. I just think just because sometimes something looks good on paper doesn't mean it's right for you. I think that's the key takeaway from this conversation. And it's okay to pivot even when others don't understand. Hey, more to come after this. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Well, welcome back. I'm here with Lauren Worley. One of the things I love about entrepreneurs and big thinkers is this balance between realism and optimism. And sometimes, let's be honest, you have to be a little, I love this coined term that you use, delusionally optimistic to keep going. Tell me about that.
Yeah. And by the way, I won't claim it, although I will claim it. It came from my business coach who was, as I was about to launch my own business after leaving, corporate life, after being in government life before that. And she's like, you have to be delusionally optimistic that this is going to work. Not like blind to all the challenges. That's not what I mean, but like,
yeah, it's work.
Yeah. But you have to work, and you can't like get stub your toe over, well, that didn't work. Like what's another way to meet the goal? And you just have to be really positive about that. And there's something about athletes do this, like musicians do, like anyone that you can think of, like kind of started with like super duper humble beginnings is like a total rock star. They had to have this like every contestant on The Voice, right, has this like delusional optimism that they're gonna make it. And then even someone like Benson Boone, whom I'm obsessed with, like,
oh my God,
he quit American Idol, yeah, and he like he dropped out of it, and because he knew his goal. And I bet there were a lot of people who were like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? This is the path. It doesn't mean, like, optimistic also doesn't necessarily mean happy to me, right? Like, I think sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking we need to like always be in a good mood, and we always need to be just like super, almost toxic positivity. And we know people around us who are just like, it's all going to work out. And it's like, actually, maybe it's not going to work out. But the relentless kind of optimism is like, I have a good plan in place. I have the people around me who are going to help me. I have a network of people who I can rely on. I have a really good plan that I'm going to stick to. Or, by the way, I'm not sure about my plan, but I am so optimistic that this business coach is going to help me too. Like, just that borderline. Like, it's not like I'm going to make $1 million off of selling Tupperware, but I really do. Now that I'm an entrepreneur, you never know. You could, if you work hard enough.
Get the glass Tupperware though.
Yeah, that's true. Like the Pyrex type stuff. Like, since I've started my own thing, I really do wake up with this like mission in my head in a way that when I was working for someone else, I didn't necessarily feel. And it has to, I mean, I can only best describe it as optimism. I feel like, Michael, right? Like, I just feel like, it's very clear what I know I need to do. And it's not to say every task I'm super excited about. Like, I'm like, oh, I like to, today I had to work on my taxes. Not what I wanted to spend my day doing. Seriously. But I knew that if I got that done, it's going to release me to get the next thing done. So yeah.
100%. And it has to, you have to keep yourself on task. And sometimes like what I've learned is like, hey, build out the end result and then build a back out schedule of how you're going to do it. I can tell you, like, I was just on calls because with the Proper Group, my company, we're switching models and we're bringing people in. And two of the big key points I heard from you is like, you're not always the smartest person. Yeah, you're very smart, but bring those people who are going to help lift you up.
Yeah, you're so much smarter if you surround smart people around you. Right?
100%. And Larry, the founder of the Proper Group, got the Proper Group to where it is, 30%. I'm taking it to this next level of scaling it, bringing in the dream C-suite, building the IP, but we're also bringing these really important, smart people of other functions and disciplines. And initially we weren't practicing with what we preach of like, we need to create systemic sustainable growth, not just growth, because so
mm-hmm.
many times companies, they fail because they've grown too fast and they didn't build an infrastructure.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah.
now I'm taking those people who are, my cheerleaders, and they're helping me, and they're going to take it from 60% to 100%. They're going to feel the ownership. They're getting equity, all these cool things that give them an opportunity to just feel like it's part of theirs. And we're doing it together collectively. So going it back into, this whole delusional optimism, I think I'm going to get a shirt or a tattoo. Maybe we should get tattoos together.
Oh my gosh, we should totally do that. Delusional optimist.
So, really, looking at a founder, and, we're both now founders, what does it truly mean to you? And
oh my gosh, yeah.
why do you think founders need it?
And I think, like, first of all, anyone can be there are definitely people who are like, when I look at them, I'm like, that is a business person, right? And I kind of feel like I'm much more of like a creative artist, and like I'm not an literal artist like our friend Pam, but like I feel like
who's going to be a guest.
Oh my gosh, I can't even wait for that episode. But like, I hope you have like 3 hours for that one.
I know.
But anyway, like I fit more in the creatives category than like a strict operations business owner. If you're into the Enneagram, like I'm a 7 and I'm not a 1. Like ones are very kind of thing. But for me, like, so
I'm a 7 too.
Of course you are. I should have known that. For me, like, what's rewarding about is the ownership that I feel for my work, and that it's my work, and that it's like I feel like, hey, this is my brand now too. Like, this is about, like, this company I've just started is built on my reputation. The clients that I have came to me because they know I can do good work. Most of them like work with me in a past life or something, or like I've been on a board with them or something. So even as I'm like onboarding an intern part-time right now, I'm like, I need you to understand, this is not like going to McDonald's and it's kind of this, faceless, mindless
like
thing.
Some days we're hot messes because we're figuring it out.
Yes, it's like, so there probably is not a process, but also just know that, like, this is my reputation. So like that is like what we have here right now. And so I think also you and I are just positive people, and who doesn't want to hire someone who's going to be positive about the work? Like, why even bother if you're going to take clients if you're not going to be like excited about the work they do? And what's also great about being a founder and my personal business model, while I do like communications and PR, like I'm not a PR firm. Like, I don't charge people by 15-minute increments. Number one, Michael, I do not want to count 15-minute increments. like who, I don't even know how you do that, by the way. But like, also, I want people to know like what the advice and the counsel I give them is what it's worth, because you're actually paying me for the experience that I have, not
100%.
How many minutes it takes, egg time, or how many minutes it takes me to do it. So like, but I also just want to bring really positive. They're also bringing me in to scale their business, to grow, or their organization. And so I need to have optimism and enthusiasm for that work, and not just like, oh, this is just another invoice I'm going to bill.
Well, you got to pay the bills, unfortunately, but
it's true.
At the end of the day, I think it's like, it's a balance, I think it's, and you're 100% spot on. And this is what I tell, my partners or anybody going into, whether call it consultants, advisors, any of this kind of work, your reputation is king. And at the end of the day, we do a lot of referral business because it's your back, it's my back. I do marketing, you do PR, communications, there's probably, I can open the door for you, you can open the door for me, but you got to build that trust with this community to make sure that the person who you're trusting isn't going to ruin your reputation by doing a bad job.
You know who the person was who came in clutch for you that one time that you really needed to get something done. And you kind of talk, this is a little off topic, but like, we talked about the Enneagram and surrounding yourself by people who also have strengths that you don't have. Like, I have a business, I'll call her a business partner. She is a chief operating officer personality. She literally just sits with me and is like, did you do this with the checking account today? And she sits with me on Teams while I get that task done, because you know what? I would lie to her and be like, oh yeah, I got the, I got all those receipts turned in. And
Hopefully
she knows good.
Listening.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah. Like, so it's just like kind of an accountability partner. But then the other piece, kind of another way, kind of buoyant, like buoy my optimism is like, we all look for mentorship all the time, but like, I love reverse mentoring. Like, and I guess I'm of an age now where where the young people working are sincerely could be like my children's age. So like that's part of it. But like when I was at P&G, I worked with this brand new brand manager, and she was 24, just out of college. And she was so excited about the work and but she had a lot to learn. And what was great was I could kind of be her steady. I'm always going to be here next to you. This is always going to happen. I would take in every one of your 100 million questions. But she had such a unique way of viewing the world and how we should do things that it actually got me really excited too. I was like, wow, I hadn't thought about that, because I grew up faxing press releases, when I was your age. So like,
Yeah.
like
Back in the
it's just
day.
back in the day,
And
like
she's
I don't
like,
even know.
what's a fax machine?
Yeah, I don't no, can't even explain it. So like, I think the reverse mentoring thing too is super important when we're building that team around us, not just, people who, kind of breaking down like who we think does the work well and giving a chance to someone else.
Well, kind of going back to, in the making the book, I really kind of talk about, the stepping stones to, something bigger. And, I think a lot of the adversities that, I've experienced over the past couple of years, which was really difficult because I'm someone who doesn't fail and
Yeah.
has never been told no and has never had to apply for jobs. They've always been recruited me.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big reality check, and really, delusional, because that's not how the real world works. And I'm kind of glad that it happened. But, I would really kind of like to know about, have you had those moments where maybe, people were doubting you because you're having these big ideas, and some people are like, man, that just makes me exhausted by just hearing what she's planning on doing. Like, what happens when someone pushes back at you, but like, this
oh
is
my
the right
gosh.
thing?
Well, the first emotion is real frustration. They're like, how can you not see what a great
See it.
idea this is? Like, how
Yes.
do you not understand? And I think one of the things that I've learned being an optimist, also just being like an audacious, big thought thinker, like crazy stuff, like let's send Tampax to space and I'm going to go talk to John Pepper about it, which I did, or I'm going to, like I definitely have these kind of like, speaking of delusional optimism, like I decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and I trained for a month before I did it. Like, I don't even know if I knew it was in Tanzania when I signed up for this trip. Like, so I kind of maybe am a little
And
bit
where
over
is
my
that on the
skis.
map? No.
It is in now I know it's in Tanzania, but I can find it for you right next to Kenya. But at the time, I'm not sure I could. Sometimes you could use that as your advantage too. Like if you are talking to someone kind of like that, it's really hard to convince them, like it actually helps your argument or actually helps your case if you can then explain it to them. In some ways, like your loyal opposition, so to speak, is your best counterpart, because it's like, if I can break this down and explain it to this person in a way that makes sense for them, everyone else is going to be super easy. And so for me, like if it was like, all right, well, I need to explain to this person why I think this marketing idea is going to work, instead of leading with my big, crazy, audacious, go viral idea, maybe I should lead with, hey, the obstacle we have right now is driving, consumption above this point during this point of seasonality or whatever, to use like kind of technical, like buzzy corporate words, right? And I noticed like when I said that, my type ones were like leaned in. Now I'm talking their language, right? And by the way, I had to rehearse this. I don't even know what half of those words mean, like really, really. But
Most companies actually have like charts that like explain
yeah,
all of
exactly. So,
that.
but if I could explain to them, this is the obstacle and the challenge, and here is the proposed solution, and it's like, and the solution is actually getting influencers to do this. Oh, by the way, they're going to like go to outer space. Like now all of a sudden, like it was almost flipping my script for me, because I would never tell a story that way, but I'm a storyteller. I'm not a business person. So like sometimes you maybe like take that as feedback. Feedback's the gift, Michael, as they like to say. And like if someone's really that skeptical of you, maybe they just don't have imagination. Maybe that is the case. But like it's maybe you're just not coming at it from the angle that makes logical sense to them. So take it as feedback.
I think like feedback is a big word, and some people don't like that word, but it's real. I think, we see things in our lens, and just going back to, bringing the right people who have diverse mindsets and different experiences, they're going to help look at the situation or the project with a different lens and think of things that your brain doesn't function to. And, you may be a little I'm just going to say it, pissed off in the instant saying like, no, my original idea was the best. And sometimes it is.
Right.
But then you step back and you're like, okay, I have to be open. I have to be a collaborator. And so, yeah, no, great conversation. This delusional optimism, I'm making up words. That's what I do.
Well, that's what we're going to put on the shirt. That's the tattoo, is
Yes.
delusional optimist. That's what we're going to have.
I love that. A little bit of it, isn't just necessary. I really think you're onto it, and it's the secret ingredient to creating something new. And I am so excited to continue the conversation with you, and more to come. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. Visit www.tinyhood.com for a complimentary week free trial. Thanks for listening.
You've got this. I'm here to walk you through your options and help you assemble your unique tool belt.
Swaddles are great to help provide that womb-like atmosphere.
If baby has a latch issue, it's really important for us to fix that as soon as possible.
Newborn babies can go through as many as 12 diapers a day.
By performing choking CPR, you increase the chances of dislodging the object and saving baby's life.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
Let's get started.
Welcome back. We're here with Lauren, and we're talking all the things. Lauren, you've talked about how hard it is to stop doing what we think other people expect.
Oh my
and start
gosh, Michael.
truly staying true to ourselves. Why do you think that's so difficult?
Well, first of all, I don't think we're raised to be like because we're a little bit older, and I'm a little bit older than you. Like we were raised to behave, right?
Yep.
And so we, not blurt out in class and not, this, that. I got in trouble, by the way, I got in trouble in kindergarten. Follow the rules. I got in trouble for kindergarten for using the blue crayon to color Smokey Bear's face on a coloring sheet because someone was using the brown and someone was using the black. And this has stuck with me. I'll be 46 this year. So clearly this has stuck with me for 40 years now, 4 decades of feeling bad about choosing the wrong color crayon. Like,
well, when was Cookie Monster invented? Should you maybe go back and trademark that?
By the way, I was sharing the crayons. Can I get a little love for sharing the crayons, Mrs. Bennington, for crying out loud? Like, I got a frowny face, Michael. So I think there's things like that happen to us early on that make us kind of, if I stay in the lines, if I stay here, like that's how I'm gonna, be seen or recognized, or people gonna, recognize my talent. But, you just can't be your real self if you're pretending to be someone else all the time. This is why, by the way, totally different topic, totally different podcast, but this is why it's so important to be out, right? Because if I'm trying to keep myself in a bottle and I can't even just talk about my significant other,
Identity,
your identity, and just not even blurting it or whatever, just being able to sit there and say it, you're not letting your whole brain be a thing. So be active. So this is why you have to truly be yourself, even when it's hard. And then, if you're play the game a little bit too, right? If you're working in a corporate environment, maybe, don't wear your pajama pants to work, play the part. But also there's absolutely ways you can be your authentic self. Another way that we don't think about a lot, but I have really started adopting this since I started working at Cincinnati Public Schools. I'm super open about my learning style. My learning style is I need to read something, then I want to talk about something, and then I want to read it again and then follow up with questions. So do not, if I go to a meeting and then someone
throw something at you,
starts talking to me, or they share the PowerPoint while we're talking, that is all of a sudden I just start looking for typos and I'm not actually even listening to what they're saying, versus if they had shared it with me beforehand. And that's how I learn. So I just am if you want me to pay attention and you want my full participation in this conversation, do my learning style. And we all have different ones. In my last job, I was the only extrovert on my team. I had 5 people working for me
Wow.
who were introverts. They were also all either middle, youngest, or only child. Like I was also the only oldest child. And that was obviously an accident. I didn't ask them in the interview, like what birth position they had. But what I learned from that was, hey, for the introverts on my team, they are not comfortable when I just bring a problem on them in a meeting and I ask them to react to it right away. Like I can actually feel them physically like making themselves smaller. And so I just started like, hey, tomorrow, guys, at our staff meeting, I'd love for you to bring me your ideas on this or email me that. And I found that like people were, when I was embracing their kind of way of doing things and their unique self, I got a little bit more well-rounded
Yeah.
advice. Some people were more willing to give you like, hey, Lauren, you probably shouldn't have done it that way kind of feedback when they, they know that you're open to it. And this is, being honest about your learning style for me is like a big way about being authentic, I think. It has nothing to do about what I wear or, the words I use or that kind of thing.
Well, like I think, that's a big point of, we're all in the making and we're all life learners and we should be willing to adapt. And if you're not willing to adapt, you're not going to survive. So, and, a funny thing, Lauren, going back to like that out, obviously, for those viewers who can't tell, I am an openly gay man, but, I grew up where, you don't wear that on your sleeves.
Right.
But like, I think more and more since, 2014 and whatnot, and it's more accepted and whatnot, I did look at companies that were more, okay with that, because I don't want to work with someone who doesn't believe in my full self, because I'm not going to show up. But I had, a gay mentor of mine who, is a pretty predominant person tell me that a gay mentor of his, who are pretty predominant gay people, basically said, to be proud doesn't mean you have to be loud. And I just thought that was the most hypocritical thing in the world as a leader. And I'm just like, I don't want to live in a world like that. I want to show it, because I'm Mike. You ask anybody before I was out, after I was out, I'm always going to be the optimistic. I'm always going to be, a confident person, but like, I just was like blown away when I was told that. Anyways, kind of going off track.
But it's absolutely true. And as leaders or entrepreneurs, or like, especially as entrepreneurs, like the faster we can tap into that, either for the people who are working around us, or maybe someone we're collaborating with, and certainly the client, like the sooner we can tap into like how this works for them, the more we're going to release that partnership with them, and we're going to be a valued partner with them too. Like it's not going to be the same way every single time. There's some people I'm going to get on the phone with and we are going to chat like you and I did for like 35 minutes before we even started the thing. But like there are other people who I can tell just by the whatever, like what's valuable to them is recap the agenda and let's dive into it. And if I can adapt to like their style, they're going to also value my counsel and my partnership more.
And hopefully they'll adapt,
and then they'll adapt, but then they're being their authentic
mutual
self too, right? Like
100%.
They're trying to, and we just can't completely unlearn behavior we learned as children, right? Like there are things that we can do to be ourselves today, but like some of these bad habits of, not letting other people in, or just, keeping people out, I guess is kind of how it is. Like we can't unlearn that. But like, I think in the business realm and the entrepreneurial realm, it is not advantageous for me to go into like a pitch with like wearing a like, a really nice suit and heels. And then what they're really going to get is something different. Like they need to know what they're getting from the beginning so they can decide like, am I the right fit for that project? And by the way, more likely than not, I probably am the right fit for that project, because they want someone that's going to be like in the weeds with them.
And you're also awesome.
And I'm awesome, just like you are.
Going into that, I love, again, kind of, we have lived lives and we have failed and we have succeeded and we have, done all the things. But, for someone listening who feels trapped to expectations, what's one step they can take to start shifting from something you learned from?
Yeah, I think, maybe this is a big step for someone else, but, one way to do this is really, when you are talking with your manager, for example, let's assume like you're at a P&G or anywhere where you have a manager, like talk to them about how you like to receive feedback. wow,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. Like, you know, I would tell when I first had my first meeting with my manager at my last position, I said to her, as confident as I am, like, I kind of need the compliment sandwich a little bit. Like, what I need to hear is like, okay, great job. You know, you did well on this. I want you to think about how you can improve this, and then, but bring it back around to, I'm really glad you're doing this work. And
I love a good
I could
sandwich.
tell, by the way, I was 45 when I'm doing this, so it's a lot easier to do that than 25. Let me recognize,
Yeah.
unless you're just super awesome. But here's what came out of that. And now maybe it's just how awesome my manager is too. We joked about this kind of, it's funny to say I need a compliment sandwich, right? But, you know, after a couple of weeks of that, and, you know, I was in a brand new job, a new field I hadn't done before. I'd never done brand communications before. So I had a lot to learn. You know, the ultimate compliment she gave me was, you always take my feedback and implement it immediately. And I was like, and that's, if you're a manager to someone, you don't need them to be right all the time. You need them to like understand, to pivot and course correct. And it was just so, I could tell, just so valuable to her, that she knew she wasn't gonna have to coach me again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
If the way I you know, presented a project, or maybe I just needed to, most of the time it's me shortening things, by the way, Michael, like I just talk too much, but like, you know, or focus it on these stats, not this data, that kind of thing. She made that recommendation. I was like, she's giving that to me for a reason. She's not just like, I don't like it. She's given to me because she has 25 years of experience in this company, and she knows what's going to work for my 1 up, 2 up, 3 up, 4 up person. And so, you know, if you can, even if maybe it's not your manager, but maybe it's your colleague who sits next to you, or maybe it's even your partner or something, I don't know, but like, if you can start to like really accept feedback. This also includes if someone compliments you, saying thank you.
Yes.
And not, oh, blah, blah, blah. Or, you know,
Like,
unless you're talking about pockets, in which case you're allowed to talk
Yeah.
about pockets. But like, don't like demur yourself. If someone compliments your outfit, say thank you. You don't have to say, and I got it on sale. Like, you can just say thanks, or, you know, take the compliment, right? So I think all
Catholic
those
guilt
things.
again.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And we're Midwestern, so we're kind of like that. But
Midwestern.
I think when we can take the compliment, and when we can, you know, take the feedback, that starts to shift our mindset a little bit to be much more comfortable in our skin, which then also is what allows us to be, you know, authentic, I think.
Well, and I think like it's a good point that, you know, I think feedback can be its own book, you know,
Oh my
like
gosh,
I really
yeah.
think, or at least a really good, strong self-help chapter.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
and I loved how you shared it. It doesn't always have to be at work. It's, you know, but I do think like it works both ways, because I'm thinking of myself as like a 22, 23-year-old. I'm too afraid to tell my manager anything.
Oh my
I'm like
gosh, yeah.
following the rules. So it's like, it's almost, it should be in the manager's training to
Oh my
be
gosh,
open
yeah.
about that. And the sad thing is, a lot of managers never have been trained to be managers. They just get promoted, and that
Yeah.
really sucks because they don't know
Yeah.
how to lead. And that's usually what causes, you know, a lot
It
of,
causes so many of our problems, to be honest with you, because
yes,
again, we built up that like being promoted is to manage people, and that's not really necessarily a promotion in my book. I think there are people, I've worked with some people. Mark Barbash was the director of the Department of Development, or he was the assistant director when I worked there. And he was one of the best people managers I have ever seen. There was like a line going in his office and out. And I sat in so many meetings where he helped coach people on how to solve problems. And I was like, that right there is a gift, because he could absolutely have yelled at those people, or he could absolutely have said, I don't know, what do you think? But he was able to coach them in a way that also built their confidence, while also training them to do some really difficult, like tax incentive type stuff, right? And I'm like, we don't all get to have that manager, but we can be that person to ourselves too, right? Like, we can also like be like, you know, what's going to help me be better this week? Oh, maybe it's laying out my clothes, you know, or maybe it's carrying my water bottle around me obsessively because I'm in a bad mood because I don't drink enough water. Like, you know, any of those things are going to help release you to be your authentic self. And it doesn't have to be a tough conversation with your boss.
yeah, you know, part of like the whole exercise and, you know, shaping in the making the book was, you know, I did the work and I went to therapy. And one of the very first exercises after I got comfortable with my therapist is she had me write a letter to my younger self, you
Oh,
know, and
wow.
in
Yeah.
the book, I write about how I spent so much time, proving myself to other people before I asked what I actually wanted. That's like coming out. I always had to be the best at everything because I wanted to hide it. The fake it till you make it mentality. Half the time we don't have it figured out, but if you trust yourself and you trust those people around us. So I really want to learn, like, how do we unlearn that conditioning?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna
We need our own
work for Deloitte.
podcast.
I know we need our own podcast. I think we need
this
our own
segment.
therapy session. Someone the other day to me, and this is a little off topic, but I think it's related. Like someone the other day to me, I walked up to their group and they were like, we're talking about imposter syndrome. And theoretically, I suppose they said they had it. And I was like, do you have imposter syndrome? Or do you think that you've been taught that people have imposter syndrome, which is a kind of crazy thing to say to someone who's like just standing at a charcuterie tray, like, whatever. But like, my point here is that like, sometimes we like self-diagnose ourselves as having issues, like accepting ourselves or whatever, but that's to your point, that's not really the issue. Like you were like, you thought the issue was, well, I'm not good enough. The actual issue was you weren't being authentic to yourself enough, therefore not releasing your potential. So it's like, sometimes I think it's asking the right question, but it's all the things that they teach you, whether in therapy or you watch a TV show about therapy, like do the hard work of the journaling, do the hard work of the, even if it's 30 seconds a day of meditating, create that to-do list every day on the things, take the stress, as much stress out of your life as you can, so that you can then really relax and be the person you are. And by the way, all these things that I'm saying, it's not like I do them all the time. Like they're 100%, we all pull like the dirty jeans off the floor and throw them on the way out the door. But like, my point just is that on the whole, if you're like adapting your lifestyle to unleash your potential in your way of doing it, I buy Uncrustable sandwiches, for example, which one you do not need to buy because you could make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And, but for me, the act of knowing that was there in my purse, like totally takes off, like, I don't have to decide what to eat today. Right. So again, it's like, so how can we unlearn some of that? It's like, do the things that are going to help you be your best, not, I can't do the things that are going to help Michael Betz be his best, right? Like I might learn from you, but I have to do the things
Vice
that's
versa.
like, like be at the airport 3 hours early. Like maybe that's me being my best. So
yeah. And you're showing up as your best self,
yeah.
I think one of the key, takeaways I took from this segment is, you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that doesn't
you do
feel
not.
true. And really the hardest work is the work of becoming, who you actually are. Because, I'm just going to say it because I'm cheesy, because we're all in the making. More to come with Lauren Worley. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.
All right, welcome back to In the Making podcast. And this is the part of the podcast that I've been most looking forward to, Michael, because this is where we like flip the table. And now it's my turn to interview you. I know you're excited.
Well, I got to sell books, right?
Yeah, well, you do. But also the book is so great. And, In the Making is a great title because we can all kind of identify with it and see, it's all about navigating our growth and change. And this is like really weird. This isn't like you've written a book about something you haven't experienced. You've actually this is you.
Yeah.
You've had so many moments of transformation. So I'm going to do my best Oprah here and maybe pick on you a little bit. But like, earlier we were talking about this like delusional optimism, since you and I are delusional optimists. And I shared a little bit about that. But do you have a time? Tell me about a time when you like had to just be like literally delusionally optimistic to like, keep it going.
Well, I really think like I'm going to tie it back to the book, and, the challenges of the new job market, that was a eye-opening kind of experiment. Like I said previously in the previous episodes that, I really never had to apply for jobs. I was always recruited. I was always promoted. People wanted me. I had, a talent that they needed, and so I think when I chose the path, and, in previous episodes, I kind of went into more details that, I kind of was forced in the path because how the economy was shifting. And I always in the back of my head really wanted to potentially go on my own. I got forced down that pathway of, I got to figure it out. I knew no jobs that I was qualified for or I was able to get. They were all frozen up for the rest of the year. This was about September when I had 5 jobs that basically froze up, C-level officers.
Oh my gosh.
Third quarter earnings came in and basically they just like, nope. So, I had already, been doing project work and working with Larry, but this was more just like a side hustle, bringing cash because I'm a capitalist. I like money. But
we like nice things and we like to travel and we like to take care of,
100%.
our friends.
Yeah, 100%. But like, I think the delusion was like, people are like, what? You're just going to like leave corporate America? You've literally climbed the ladder your entire life. I don't get it. And so it didn't, it didn't compute to certain people. So, there was months I had no paychecks coming in, just this burning belief that if I bet on people and values, something good would come out of it. I call it, again, like you said, delusional optimism, because on paper, the odds weren't great. Should I just wait it out and get that next corporate job? But in my gut, and, at the end of the day, you have to have gut and heart. I felt the only way path forward was like to continue to go down. I saw a vision and I could go after it. And, the job market was shifting, traditional career ladder were breaking down. And I knew I had to create, kind of a new model that fit the world that is coming. And so that's what came out of the proper group. And I'm so glad that I was, delusional and optimistic at the same time.
Well, what makes me think of, when you're talking about like, this is like really big stuff. Like when you're used to having like your big corporate job that like the bonuses that come in and, you get a really good sense of like when you're getting paid and how you're going to be paid for it to then being like, oh no, I don't have a check coming in. And so it feels like, number one, you're probably, if I were in your shoes, I'd be doing a lot of like, oh crap, did I make the right decision? And so it kind of fits into this, like, how on earth did you even know when you decided to kind of give up this corporate thing because it wasn't working out? But like, how did you even know all of a sudden, like, this is a thing that was someone else's dream, but you knew it wasn't right for you? Because like you said, like everyone else might totally think you're crazy.
I think it was really like, kind of, the whole adage, the rug got pulled out from underneath me.
Yeah.
And, it kind of, again, shifted me to pivot. And, leaving what I thought was forever was terrifying. It's all I knew. I've been a corporate boy, trained and pampered and had all the perks, had the expense account, had
all
some really
points.
cool jobs. Yeah. Checked all the boxes. But I felt disconnected and unfilled, to be honest with you, the last 5 years of my corporate gig. I felt like I would plateau at some point. And so I think it was more, the confusion of the people around me. They were confused because they knew, I think they saw in me that I could be a CEO of a big company. I could be a CMO of a big company. They saw success, and, a lot of that is smoke and mirrors, that fake it till you make it, be that forever optimistic. But I felt stuck, to be honest with you, and walking away from the role was the beginning of choosing, really alignment for myself over achievement. I think the dream job can be just a trap sometimes. It doesn't really reflect, who you become or who you want to become. It's sometimes just a paycheck. And is that paycheck really something that is truly going to define you? And is that going to help make the world a better place than you found it? So, so I think, that was really kind of the moment of the dream where it didn't feel right.
Hmm. But like, did you feel like when you started on this new journey, like what was the hardest part about that? About like, did you were like, am I staying true to myself? Like, how are you sure you were staying true to yourself? Because like you felt true to yourself before when you're doing the corporate thing, but like now you're trying to build something big. Like what's the hardest part of that in terms of just kind of continuing to be your authentic self through all that?
There's an entire chapter in the book where, building your own personal brand. I think regardless if you're in the, corporate world,
Mhm.
and Lauren, you've done a really good job on LinkedIn. That's really how I got to know you over the past
It is
several
kind of
years.
funny. Like that
We
is how we
all,
know each other. Yeah.
we always like combine, we've known each other and of each other because we have,
Mhm.
it's such a small world, but we were
Yeah.
really just met through, our paths crossing at events and whatnot and other friends. And basically all my friends saying, I do not know how you and Lauren are best
I
friends.
know, same,
Uh,
same. Like, people be
but I
like,
think
"Do you know who you should talk to about this?" Michael Betz. And I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, we don't know
vice
each other."
versa. Vice versa. We have dropped into so many DMs. If the world knew how many
Yeah,
times I DM'd
yeah.
you and you DM'd me. Anyway, I move on. So honestly, it's the temptation, really to mold yourself into what you think people want. That's the hardest thing, is when you're building your brand, you think you need to be perfect, you need to
Mhm.
Kardashian it, you need to edit it. Don't get me wrong, I use filters, I do all those things,
Oh
but
yeah.
you know, I mean, I look good. You can see me on this camera, but
You have a great skin
especially.
regimen. That's another podcast we could do.
Oh, 100%. I got that from my gay best friend Ben years ago, and a little Botox here and there. I think that's really important, when you're trying to grow something new, is to stay consistent, to, have that mold what you want to be. But then there are moments that, I really watered myself down,
Yeah.
kind of like what you said, sometimes you felt like you couldn't show up as your authentic self in a room. You kind of had to water yourself down to feel comfortable, or you get feedback from someone saying, hey, you shouldn't do this, hey, you shouldn't do
Hmm.
that, hey, maybe a little too many drinky photos on the Instagram. And
Yeah.
I realized that if I wasn't showing up fully, the whole thing felt hollow. And at the end of the day, I'm a badass in regards of doing great things professionally, but I'm also a fun person, and I'm not going to
Hmm.
hide that from people who may think I'm one thing over not, because I do not want to be or play a false role. So I think it's really important to not feel hollowed. And I think the hardest part is being seen, like truly
Yeah.
seen, because it opens you up to judgment, and being seen is really where the magic happens. I had to remind myself that this is my story with all the pivots, the
Hmm.
missteps and reboots. It wasn't a liability, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it was the brand, and I'm proud of
Hmm.
my brand.
I love your brand too. Maybe we'll like in the making, we'll throw out our outfits from the HRC dinner because those were pretty
Yes.
I think a lot of people who are probably tuning in to the podcast, and also people who have like read the book or are going to buy the book now that they've listened to the podcast, probably feel like they're also in this kind of their version of in the making. And I was wondering, like, okay, so that question we always ask, like, if you could give one piece of advice to that person who's listening to this now and feels stuck, like, but needs to kind of springboard into their own in the making journey, what would you tell them to do? What advice would you give them?
Another full chapter, it's really community and collaboration. Surround yourself by the people who are going to uplift you and make you your best self. First, I'm going to tell you, you're not alone.
Hmm.
Everyone wants to glamorize the before and after, but the middle is where the real work happens. When
Yeah.
I call it the ramp. Ugh.
Hmm.
I'm going through it. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing the podcast and the book and building the proper group. But, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talk to someone who's, a few steps ahead of you. I
Yeah.
want to be that resource for you, Lauren, if need
Yes.
be.
Right.
Let, the community hold you when your vision feels foggy. Your next step doesn't have to be massive. Just
Hmm.
make the step forward. And, I think it's one of those things where momentum builds that movement, but sometimes you just need to say yes before you're ready. It's
Yeah.
yes. And, you want to be calculated. You want to make sure you're prioritizing your time. You still want to be risk averted, and you want to make money. So you
Right.
still have to factor all those things in. But I think, at the end of the day, that community and collaboration, it's going to open the doors for you. It's going to be a shoulder to lean on and maybe give you a hanky when you are crying, because it's blood, sweat, and tears, literally, doing what we do. And, just being okay with, it's also a hard thing for a lot of, I think going back to that Midwesterns, just to ask for help, but I think I was instilled with, I had this mantra of like, I have this really good core group of people that are my personal board of directors. They
Ooh,
are,
I like
my
that.
former bosses. They are, peers. They're people who have worked for me. Larry Burns, the founder of the Proper Group, was my college professor from 21 years ago.
That's so great.
So it's just,
I didn't know you guys had that level of history. That's amazing.
Get yourself that board of directors and just surround yourself around good people.
Well, I mean, like you said just now, like, you and I are both on an entrepreneurial journey, and you're a couple steps ahead of me. So I see fog where you might just see partly cloudy. So so what's in the making for you? What can you give us any, like, let us in on like what's next for you? What's still in the making?
I have so many aspirational goals. Lauren, you're going to realize, once you get the bug and you have some wins under your, under your belt, you really get this entrepreneurial bug that you just kind of want to become a serial entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh.
You have projects being thrown at you, people you've wanted to collaborate, like, and you pinch yourself that you get to work with these people. And it's like, they're doing this because of me, they're taking risks because of me. So, I definitely think, my immediate is really to try to help those people who may be going through this. And, I'm trying to make it a macro experience by, creating the book. What are the things that, I failed at, I succeeded at? What are the advice that I can give people to hopefully get them one step up? Because I want to, pay it forward, because I have been tremendously gifted it from other people. I definitely think like, I there's other verticals that I want to go into. The Proper Group is expanding. We went from 2 partners to 14 partners. We'll be at 25 by the end of the year. I want to do a podcast with you and become your best friend. We
have to find free time in our 24 hours a day for that to happen. So we're working on that, everybody who's watching.
Exactly. We're working on ourselves. Okay. But, I think personally, I'm learning to hold space for joy and ambition, to build without burning out. It's a balance. And, I'm in the entrepreneurial phase. I have an opportunity to build, long-term wealth in a company that is strong, a brand that's respected and admired, and just counsel to those who need help when they're in the most need. So, what's still in the making, me. Always, there'll probably be a 2.0 version, follow up, real world reunion. And, I hope it stays that way, because it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's and that's the cycle, right? Like, that's, if you're not inventing and making, I mean, you can't stay where you are, you can't plateau. So I can see why you would get the bug, and why your energy would just propel you into the next thing too. Thank you for sharing that with us, because there's you and I know this, because we're working in this world. There's a lot of people who kind of keep those secrets to themselves, or continue to make it seem like they've got it all together and that kind of thing. And I think both sharing the vulnerability, but also your big vision, which you have, like the growth the Proper Group's doing, and then you're expanding it, but the book, the podcast, and then whatever comes next from that, like, also just shows well, first, how multifaceted you are, but then also like that you can grow new strengths and new things that will become part of your dream that maybe you didn't even know was part of the dream today.
I love that. Well,
Mhm.
Lauren, thank you so much for this,
Oh, thank you so much.
thought-provoking. The process of becoming never ends. My big key takeaway from this is the best things, in life are still in the making. More to
Yeah.
come with Lauren. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Welcome back to In the Making with my guest, Lauren Worley. That came out weird. Lauren, it was incredible. Thank you for your honesty.
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun.
It's so much fun. Your insights, and for reminding us all that it's okay to leave the dream job, take big risk, and stay true to ourselves. Where can people find you, follow your work, and keep up with what's next?
Yeah, well, I definitely like if you've listened to this podcast, you should absolutely come find me on LinkedIn. I actually hang out there. I don't know how cringe
She's
or
the
meta
best.
that is, but like I really do connect with some amazing people there. And so it's at Lauren B. Worley. And you'll know me because I'm standing in front of you'll link it, you'll do it. It's there. Find me here. So definitely find me here. And then you'll also find my new business, Blue Cardinal Village, that's linked up there. And then we're
Can you kind of just briefly kind of discuss what you're doing? I can't believe I didn't ask the new ventures.
So look, there are PR firms out there, and there are lobbying companies, and there are advocacy companies. But what I find is there's a lot of organizations that they have a strategic plan, but they need to get from like year 0 to year 5. So they've done all the hard work, but now they need to execute. And Mark Pritchard at P&G always says execution is the only strategy a consumer sees, and execution is my strategy. Like that's, please don't put me in a room and ask me to sit there for 6 months as we like nosh and like blah, 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 about what the vision is. It just doesn't. There's great people to help you think that through. For me, it's like, okay, I understand what you want to do and you want to grow in this way. How do we use, social media, earned media, communications? How do we build coalitions? How do we be strategic about get you go there? Because you just said it. Sometimes if we go too fast, we don't have the framework. So that's what Blue Cardinal does. And the reason Village is we are very focused on nonprofits, school districts, community organizations. Organizations that are in the public schools today or like helping make our neighborhoods just a little bit better. So we're very focused on greater Cincinnati right now as the place where we want to, make that impact.
And scale.
Then we'll take over the rest of the world. But
the world.
Cincinnati's such a great place, and the world needs a little bit right now. And there's so many great organizations. But anyway, so then Instagram at Blue Cardinal @_Blue Cardinal, and that's where you can follow like not just what I'm doing, but also we post about our clients. So really excited to like tell a little bit more about their stories and their why they're doing it. And then we're on Blue Sky on Twitter too. Is anyone still on Twitter? I don't know, but you can find us there. We're, kind of talking about the advocacy issues that matter to our clients. So, that's kind of thing. And then I have a newsletter that I put out. It's called Space to Village.
I love it.
So I used to work in space
Sunday.
And so every Sunday, or more or less every Sunday, we've got the like inspo comes to me. And I try to like talk about like how I connect that to my how I think about communications. And what I love about doing the newsletter is the notes I get back from people, actually. So it's like one thing for me to put out an idea, but it's the feedback I get from people that actually kind of get me going. I did have somebody stop me in the grocery store once because she subscribes to my LinkedIn newsletter, and I looked like heck that day. Like I was
Bono.
Oh no! Like I was in the pajama. I had done the pajama pants Sunday go before the Bengals game run to the grocery store, and she was like, "Aren't you Space to Village newsletter?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to like remember to put
the
mascara on."
They can't leave me alone.
I got to like put mascara on next time I go to the Kroger.
No, and in all honesty, you were one of my inspirations of really doing a lot of thought leadership over the past year and a half on LinkedIn and seeing the regular frequency, because I look forward to seeing your posts and I learned a lot. And I just, sometimes, I'm not, obviously it's a game. We want to put it out there to grow our brand and stuff like that. But we all know things that like can help people.
It really helps people.
If it gets a job for us, it gets us a job. But
also,
you got to put yourself out there.
And it's a great way to like do some mentor, especially I talk to a lot of college students and stuff. And the honest truth is I don't have time to like sit down and do a coffee with a college student for an hour, like multiple ones every week, right? But I don't like every opportunity I've had is because someone's like you, like someone picked me for the job or whatever. So I wanted a way to kind of connect with people and share that experience. And also I disagree with myself sometimes. Like sometimes I start to write something I think I have an opinion on and actually I don't. So think about thought leadership. It's also a creative way to like hone what I'm thinking right now based on what's going on in my life.
Well, I love that. And we'll add all your links.
Oh, good. Okay. So in
the
case I messed up my...
Well, we'll add it in the screen so you'll be able to see it. We'll also add it in the about section on the episode podcast details. But, hey, I just want to tell you, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Michael. This is best.
To our listeners, if you want to keep up with In the Making, follow along on our socials. They'll be posted all around and in the information section. Definitely, my book's coming out April 10th. It's going to be available on all digital platforms, and then it will be available a couple weeks after on for print. So make sure you check that out. And until next time, keep embracing those pivots because we're all still in the making. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Lauren.
Bye.
You've got this. I'm here to walk you through your options and help you assemble your unique tool belt.
Swaddles are great to help provide that womb-like atmosphere.
If baby has a latch issue, it's really important for us to fix that as soon as possible.
Newborn babies can go through as many as 12 diapers a day.
By performing choking CPR, you increase the chances of dislodging the object and saving baby's life.
Let's get started.
Now let's get back to the podcast. Welcome to In the Making podcast. Please like and subscribe and engage. We want to hear from you. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.